Yeah, so I remember I wanted to be a magician when I was a little kid, and of course, one of my all-time. If you would ask me when I was a kid what do you want to be when you grow up, I said Spider-Man, and for me Spider-Man was completely real, because I mean, and there was this logic that is there's no holes there. It's solid logic.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Spider-Man lives in New York, and I knew that New York is real, so that means Spider-Man is real. But then there was this one incident on my birthday, and it must have been my 7th or 6th birthday. And I'm born in February, so in Finland it is quite icy and cold and snowy then. So I had my birthday, and my parents and other like older people were inside, having coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
And me and another kid who was a guest at the birthday party, we went outside, and I climbed on our, on the stairs of the ladder of our house, and I just decided that I'm, on the roof. That I climbed on the roof, and I decided that I'm just gonna come down as a Spider-Man, because I thought that I can do it. I could not do it, so I fell, obviously, because my hands didn't stick to the wall. So that birthday ended up me being in an ambulance, rushed to the emergency room with 3 of my ribs broken and my lung collapsed and all that shit, and then it's like, oh fuck, so it didn't work. My imagination was so strong that I thought that of course I can do it. If I really want it, if I really believe it, it will happen. It did not. So that is the hardest lesson I've ever learned. That is like, fuck. So it doesn't work the way that and probably around that time I realized, oh, Spider-Man isn't real either. Maybe there's a chance that he's not real.
Tommy's imagination and creativity have been heavily impacted by his interests and hobbies. This was one of the topics of our discussion last time, and from his childhood we covered different aspects of his life up to the point of Lordi's first officially released track, Inferno, on the 1995 compilation CD Rockmurskaa. The music video for this track featured some of the visual elements that would be seen in the band Lordi in years to come. That can be said because one of the masks in this video would go on to form part of Kalma's costume. Kalma was of course the bassist of Lordi between 2002 and 2005. That mask and the idea behind Lordi's visual element and costumes weren't just thought up, they came from a dream Tommy had one night. And that's where we begin today. From True Metal Podcast, I'm Matthew Kessie, and this is Monsters of Rock, the Lordi story. You're listening to episode 2, Prologue, the first lineup.
This dream is probably 95 or something. Okay. So I had a lot of things going on already. It wasn't until that dream that I have decided, oh fuck, I had it, and I still remember the dream. I was at a gig in a dream, looking at the stage. There's a small club, whatever, a few hundred people there, and there's a band on stage, and the main character is a guy who looks like a skeleton, and like a real skeleton, like Kalma basically.
Yeah.
and playing a guitar and singing. And that was like, and I remember that the next day that dream didn't leave me alone. I was like, okay, that I want to see that. That looks so cool. Why isn't there a band that looks like a fucking, you know? Why isn't there a band that is formed by people who look like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees and Leatherface? There should be a band like that, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though Kiss and Alice and Twisted Sister, they come close, but I mean, I wanted to see like real monsters, on stage.
Yeah.
And when I saw the video, when I had all my friends that I dressed up as monsters and did all these masks and shit, and I looked like, okay, fuck. I mean, I am the worst looking dude in the video. It should be the other way around. And that was the thing. That fuck. Okay, that's how it should be. I should be the guy wearing those masks.
Okay.
And I cannot be sure anymore if the dream was around that time, but I would say the dream was there before. I'm pretty sure that I saw that dream like long time before that.
When I see that video, the character who's on the horse and then makes the deal with those...
That is Kalma. It is the mask.
Yeah.
It is the same mask. But then, that once again, that is the different storyline of what I did when I was a kid. So, because me and Pete Risk, the film director, and also the other Pete too, and they pretty much, I mean, we gathered all of our friends, and we started doing these home videos or films, as we call them. And that started already in 1986 when my father turned 50 and he got himself a video camera. So we started doing these films like immediately.
Right.
And at that time I was already doing the makeup, the monster things. And then, of course, what would be better than have a fucking tool to actually do something, do your own horror films, So by that time, when the Inferno was done, it's like we had already done years and years of these videos or films or whatever, short films, and then Kalma mask was one of those masks that I did for one of our horror films, that we did. So, but it was a cool mask because it was actually something that it was one size fits all. So anybody could put it on their head and open the jaws, and it looked cool. So it was. It was originally made for I don't remember her name, but it was a girl that we got for our film who was a really tall and skinny, like model type girl who actually wound up modeling afterwards, by the way. So the body type then. So because we wanted to have a skeleton kind of character that is tall and skinny, and so it was done. The mask was done for her.
Right.
And then years later, I used it on the Inferno video because I mean I had this cool mask, so I don't have to do all the masks. Like I don't have to do new masks for everything I do. So so it was just like very clear that I'm going to use that because I wanted to have this like death character on the Inferno video. So I have this mask already existing. So I guess, and I actually don't even have to guess because I remember that the person who's inside the Kalma mask there on the Inferno video is actually a riding instructor who rode the horse. A girl.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This dream and Lordi's love of horror movies and visually strong characters ultimately went on to shape the image and presentation of the band. It is from this moment of the completion of the Inferno music video that the work began on the Lordi we know today. The Monster Squad was soon to become a reality. What better way to move forward then than to talk to the first costumed member of the band? Outside of Lordi himself, of course. That being Sami Kainanen, aka G-Stealer.
everybody sort of knew Tommy because, well, mostly because of all the Kiss stuff.
Yeah.
And he was doing some horror movies with his friends, and I think I probably met some of Pete Risky, who's been directing also some of the music videos.
Yeah.
And well, Pete and Tommy, they were known for those horror movies, and Tommy, or we called him Buddies. He was known for Kiss stuff, and always, I don't think I've ever seen Tommy not wearing some Kiss shirt or jacket or some Kiss stuff. So whenever you saw Tommy, he was always wearing some Kiss stuff, and I was a big fan of Kiss. Well, everybody was pretty much, but Tommy was definitely in his own league there. Actually, I remember the phone call quite well when he phoned me and told me about the idea, and to be frank, it was sort of an idea that you could see it coming. Like, if somebody's going to do this sort of stuff, it has to be Tommy or Mr. Lordi, because he's been doing that horror movie stuff. He was very good at drawing and very good with crafting all those masks, and he's been doing that stuff with those movies many years already, and he was getting very good with that. So, and of course the Kiss, and I would think probably the Michael Jackson Thriller video must be one of his biggest inspirations. I would say so at least. And when he told me about this, I was very excited about it right away. So it was very easy to say yes. Like, of course, definitely. I was studying at the time, and so it was really, really perfect for me. Like, I was totally on board right away. I think he had a bunch of drawings he had done for G Steeler and costume, and I would say that my costume was the very first one he did. We were in his parents' house, and he had a sort of an art studio there. Like, well, it was his room full of his stuff, and then there was this room full of all this Lordi and these masks and everything, and yeah, I would think like G Steeler mask was the very first one he made.
Nice. Even before his own.
He had some stuff, but this was like the sort of like a proper Lordi costume, and probably had some variations for himself.
And then when you seen it, what did you think of the first iteration of the costume?
No, I think it was great. It was scary, as it was supposed to be, and well, I'm not that tall. Quite the contrary, actually. But I was wearing these very high heels, like 20 centimeters or so, and sort of wearing the full costume, the shoes and everything. Like it was sort of like when I was wearing that, I did feel like more like G Steeler than myself.
Lordi, of course, would go on to create costumes for himself and other members in the band, all the way up to this point in history, as well as designing album covers, logos, pretty much everything you see in the band, his hand has touched. However, we still have to find out what the first iterations of his costume were like.
There was kind of like 2 points of creation of or birth of Mr. Lordi's visual look. It was the first, of course, was the one that I only wore like a costume, nothing as huge that it is, for example, Get Heavy or ever since. But but I had more like a cyberpunk thingies with this black glossy surfaced like pads and tubes and wires and spikes and studs and stuff like that, but nothing on my face.
Okay.
There's a bunch of pictures of me on those first demos. There's like a lot of them. Then the next phase was the actual like first Mr. Lordi mask. The blueprint of that actually came from one of those short films that we did years before that, and it was a mask that I did for one of our little short films, and the actor who was playing this monster character there with this very unique design on the face was actually Kimmo Valtanen, who later on turned out to be our CEO at Sony BMG and Sony.
Right.
My friend. So he was wearing this mask and he was playing this character in one of our short films, and so I always liked the design because the design was really unique, and even though I'm like a fucking fungus, I take influences and I'm not ashamed to admit them. I mean if I see Freddy Krueger and that looks cool, so I try to make my own version of Freddy Krueger and so on and so on and so on. But there was something about this character called Roikottaja, would be translated as a hanger, like not hangman, but like somebody who hangs someone else. Okay.
It was the basis of this character's face that would go on to provide the foundations of his mask, which would be later built upon in 1997.
And I remember I was living in Helsinki at that time. So, and I'm living in my small one-room flat, which was 17 square meters, tiny as fuck. But I had my fucking all my Kiss collection at the time there with the pinball machine and everything. I had everything there, so it was like a small fucking cube filled with stuff and myself and and underneath under my bed. My bed was like on a balcony there,
right? And
under the balcony there was this little workspace that I did all the makeup stuff and did the first costumes right there, in an area that is like less than 2 square meters. This is like tiny fucking place. And I actually remember vividly that the mask was there on the table, and when I was and my Lordi costume, the first version of it was already like probably half done, or most of it was done, and I started drawing something on the back of the cape, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna just do a visual, like a more stylized version of my mask, and that's how the Lordi symbol came about. So the painted logo of the Lordi symbol on the back of the cape on Gets Heavy and Monster Can Dream, that is the original drawing of it. It's that, and I have used that in graphics. Like even on the new tour graphics, I still use the same fucking. It's that. And then the different versions and the more simplified versions of that, later on. But that mask is actually the Lordi symbol, or the other way around. The Lordi symbol is actually that first mask. If you start thinking about it, it actually has the horns. I mean, that first Lordi mask, it had, all the horns on the side. So I had that many horns there.
Right. Okay.
And you can actually see where the beard would be, where my mouth and beard would be, and the nose and everything. So that is basically like a stylized version of that Lordi mask.
This mask would not go on to become the Mr. Lordi face we know today, as according to Mr. Lordi, he believed it was too original and over-designed for his character, and instead he would eventually take inspiration from the design of the Deadites in the Evil Dead franchise and Freddy Krueger of Nightmare on Elm Street, and, of course, with the influence of Kiss, Twisted Sister, Wasp, Alice Cooper, and plenty of other bands, the demonic Leviathan character of Mr. Lordi was born. It could be said that the majority of Tommy's interests were now sandwiched into one package. Now, we must move on to the formation of the first lineup of the band. While G. Steeler had known Mr. Lordi for quite a while before joining the band, the other members in the first lineup came to know him through Kiss Army Finland, which Lordi was the president of at the time. It was through his organising of a trip to Stockholm to see Kiss perform that the remaining members would come into the fold.
I remember the first time something moved me and shaked me was Elvis Presley. I had a C cassette for Christmas present and Kim Wilde C cassette for some reason. And I loved those melodies and I loved the attitude of Elvis Presley. I never knew who is Elvis Presley, but I loved the rock and roll and like jailhouse rock.
This is of course one of those people.
The rockabilly music was really close to me, and it still is.
Lordi's guitarist,
Stray Cats, the rockabilly band, has a huge influence on me. When I was 10 years old or something, I'm like, oh my god. And after that came AC/DC and Kiss, and then the Motley Crue way. But yeah, that's how it started.
Amen Ra.
Then we have to skip like a few years, and when I was like, I think 1983, I was 11, 12, 13, something like this. So, and then Kiss Animalize album came out, and that was the last push for me. Like, oh my god, I was running out of the school back to home, and I was blasting out the Kiss Animalize vinyl. And because nobody was home, and we had huge speakers, and I was Miro, and no guitar and nothing, and I was just trying to do Paul Stanley moves, and it was like, oh my god, how can something be so good like Heavens on Fire or Twist in the Night? Oh my god.
Kiss in many ways is the key influence behind the band Lordi, and it is what drew so many of its members, past and present, together.
I never wanted to be a guitar hero.
Okay.
I'm not. And I never want to be, back in the days we take called rhythm guitarist and solo or lead guitarist. Lead guitarist and rhythm guitarist, you had them in your band. I was always like, what the fuck is that? I want to be a guitarist like Malcolm Young, but I don't want to be in a spotlight, but
okay.
I have to make noise. And to making noise for me was always like the priority number one, because I remember when I got my first electric guitar, I was at my parents' house where I was living, and when the girl next door from the next house was going to the school, I was waiting for her, and I opened the windows and I played my guitar. It wasn't really playing, but it was like making noise, like few, not even a chords, but like a few sounds. And she was walking by and she was turning her head like, what's going on over there? And I felt good. I'm like, yeah, I got your attention. And then I went to school and she came to me. She was really pretty. So was it you who was playing? I'm like, no, I was like, what? And then she said, I thought that it was a radio. And I'm like, really? I'm like, wow. So that was, I always remember that feeling. It was so, the compliment you can never expect.
Yeah.
The girl you are in, not in love, but you are like, you like somebody really a lot. And she walks by and you turn out your arms to your window to the streets, and she's like, oh, what's going on there? And I always loved that attention, like to make noise. And like you said, I guess I always wanted to be a rock star.
It was Amen's desire to be a rock star and to have a career band that would ultimately drive him to join Lordi. And when it came to joining Lordi, it was Kiss that provided that opportunity.
A small country, Finland, is not so surprised that even without social media or these mobiles nowadays or whatever, network, internet, it's not surprised that you find people who are on the same level as you are.
Yeah.
So I was talking with Mr. Lordi like many years before I met him first time, and all talk was related to the Kiss.
Okay.
So Kiss fans in Finland, we had hard Kiss fans, like, I don't know, 20 people, and Kita was one of them. Then Mr. Lordi was living in Lapland, and I was living in southern of Finland, and it's 1,000 kilometers
Right.
distance.
Yeah.
So then Kiss happened to play in Stockholm, Sweden,
Yeah.
and there was a organized trip from Kiss Army Finland was organizing trips to there, and Mr. Lordi was kind of in charge of it. And first time we met at the railway station, I still remember it. He looked so scary. All the leather and stuff and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, who's this guy? So, and it was 1996. And we went to Stockholm, and I don't know, the cruise is like 12 hours, 20 hours maybe. And we got along really well. And actually me and Mr. Lordi and Kita were the only guys who went to Gothenburg as well, to South Sweden, to see another Kiss show on the trip. And the rest of 300 people went back to Finland. And at the Gothenburg thing, we got to know each other really well. Well, not really well, but better. And then we came back to Finland, and between 1996 97, Mr. Lordi moved from Lapland to southern part of Finland, and because he didn't know people around, so he called to me and those guys like, hey, I'm here now, and 1997 he asked me like, so I have a band, it's a crazy idea, but I think you will get it because you're a Kiss fan. So what do you think about this? Now I was like, I'm in.
It was from this moment that Amen would become the guitarist of Lordi. Now came the design of his character and costume. And obviously when I spoke to Mr. Lordi, he said that the first couple of ideas you had for your costume, or that the two of you had, was to be this almost like Texan zombie petrol station guy. But what made that idea come to mind first?
You mean like a Texas?
Yeah, how did that...
Gasoline.
Yeah.
Monster, zombie, whatever. It was so much brainstorming back in the days that we just were throwing up ideas like this and that, and I think that it was just something that we thought that would be cool to have a really dirty, small monster, whatever. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe, and usually, maybe there was something like at least I was thinking maybe those. Well, in many horror movies, there are many scenes where someone is stuck somewhere with her or his car somewhere in the middle of
yeah,
or whatever, and then there's a gas station, and always something bad happens on those gas stations. It's always something bad. There's never nice guys who comes out and,
yeah.
hey, I want to fill your tank. Okay, good luck. Travel safe, and it's all something like, that's not good.
Yeah.
So maybe there was something like that we were thinking that maybe that kind of guy could be a guitarist character.
Right.
So,
okay. And then
I don't have any other explanation for that. So
right.
but something like that when I try to think of it. So from the horror movies, and something bad happens always, at gas stations. So.
Nice. And then how did that evolve then into a mummy? Where did the mummy idea come from?
It's also like brainstorming. It's just one of those. I like ancient Egypt things a lot. And maybe just, the horror movies, mummies. Of course, we went through probably, I don't know, Dracula, vampires, everything maybe.
Yeah.
But we throw it away like in a second. No vampires, no that, no. But then mummy, somehow we both liked a mummy idea. It's just most likely brainstorming, and mummies are cool. So
yeah.
I remember when we were talking about something like that. If you have a mummy or a gas station zombie, or we even have a porn Caesar guy full of wearing leather pants and everything. So that wasn't like porn Caesar. That wasn't me. I was like, I don't know. I don't know wearing a leather, leather jacket and leather pants and leather fucking hats, and maybe that's too much. I don't know. But then mummy, I always liked mummies, and that was something like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. We were talking about so much this whole concept and whole, daily basis. We talk about like, I don't know, 5-6 hours all the time. So
nice.
It's just one of those sessions, and it just happened.
Okay. In 1997, with the lineup of Eamon on guitar, G. Steeler on bass, Enery on the keyboard, and Lordi on vocals, Lordi and his Monster Squad would get an opportunity to record their first album. Just so you know, Enery came into the band nearly around the same time as Eamon and met them through Kiss Army Finland. However, she wasn't available for comment or participation in this series.
I was already in Helsinki, and I applied for this like this aid, this money for young people or whatever for an album that you could, what's the fucking word, like a indie thingy that you produce yourself, and you could apply money from the government or from the youth,
or like a grant
or cultural. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I got 10,000 Finnish marks or 15,000 Finnish marks,
right.
Which was a big money at the time. So all right. So and then I because then there's the third line, the Kiss Army thing that I also started, in the mid 90s. So I that's how I got to know Sami Magnum.
Yeah.
So I decided that I and Magnum and his friend, they had a studio, so I decided, okay, I'm gonna do the album there in their studio in Helsinki. Actually, Espoo, which is a city next to Helsinki, and I got the confirmation that I will get the money, but they will pay it when the album is done, and you get the, you actually show them receipts and all that shit. So we started recording that, and then it just took so fucking long, and then blah 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 blah. Time ran out and all that stuff. So we were recording "Bend Over and Pray the Lord" then, and then I asked for like more time from the, what the hell was it, the audiovisual blah 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 association, something that granted the money, and they gave me 2 times. They gave me the extra time for that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But then at some point they said, hey, listen, you just have to be able to already be able to put it out. Right. But it was still unfinished, and at the same time in the studio that we were recording it, Magnum and his friend, they were like, okay, you have spent quite a lot of time here already, so, and it's still not finished, so what are we gonna do? I mean, so then I called another friend who's actually also from Rovaniemi but lived in Helsinki, and we went to his studio to continue for another fucking year to record that and try to. And this was the time when there is no digital recording yet. There are some DAT tapes, but there's no multi-channel, digital recording. So everything was on 24-track fucking reels. Yeah. So it took a lot of time to actually get all those analog things in sync with each other, with all those 13 or 14 songs, and to do that. So it took months and months to do that, and then we could continue working on those. And what happened was that around the same time, or during the same time, I met Arska, our first manager, and who was already a big shot in the music industry in Finland, because he had his own record company and his own band that was very successful in Finland, and so he got excited about Lordi. He was the first one, like a first outsider who really understood the whole thing, and he said, well, I wanna do this. You guys should be, let's do this shit. And then obviously I thought that we would go to his record label, but he said, no, we're not big enough. For this band, you need to have a major label. And so then at that moment, he became our manager, and he started pushing us and trying to find us some contacts where we could actually get the album out and get the band out. And funnily enough, that my right hand at that time, it wasn't Eamon, it wasn't Enari, it wasn't G Steeler, but it was Magnum, who was just my friend, but he was so enthusiastic about the whole Lordi thing, even though he wasn't in the band. He was my right hand at the time, like all the time, like he was so excited about the whole thing, and he's very important part of the whole Lordi thing in the beginning, because countless hours, and we talked through the nights, and we were planning things, and so I used him as a mirror. I've always had people that I use as a mirror when I just like babble, blah 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 blah, and then I have another person who's like either digging it or criticizing what I'm saying, and so yeah, so much very much like Janne Halmkrona or NR nowadays. So it's like I always needed, and funnily enough, that person pretty much, it has never been a person who has been my fellow bandmate. It has always been an outsider for me. For some reason, it's always I need somebody who's like not in the band to have this. It was Bill O'Coin for some time, and But anyway, getting back to the Bend Over and Pray the Lord. So he decided that he's gonna form like another label under his already existing record label. I mean, Arska, our manager at the time. And then he got a guy who was working for him, and he wanted to, start this rock or metal label. And he said, all right, and everything looked clear. Everything looked cool. There was no, there was not a cloud in the sky. Everything looked well. And we finished the album, the recordings of it. And then I had that, I did the graphics for the booklet. And this is what literally happened. I went with a plastic bag with these CDRs in the plastic bag, which have the album master, and it has all the graphics and everything. And I'm grabbing my hand to the handle of the door of the printing place, and my phone rings, and I'm like, okay, what is that? And that's the guy with the new record label. And he goes, are you there at the printing place yet? So yeah, I'm just stepping in. Don't go. We're bankrupt. We cannot do it. Oh. So don't. And I'm like, really? And that was like exactly the moment that I was on the fucking steps there when he called, and I never entered. So then it was like from the highest clouds you fucking drop down like million miles down to hell, like the depression struck me like a light. Like, no fucking way, this can't be happening.
It would take 15 years for fans to eventually hear Bend Over and Pray the Lord, which was part of the 10th anniversary box set released in 2012 called Scarchives Volume 1. And it wasn't for another 7 years after 1995, and with numerous changes of members, that Lordi would be signed to a record label and release their first album. But that is what we'll discuss next time. I'm Matthew Kessie, and Monsters of Rock, the Lordi Story is a true metal podcast production. I'd like to thank Lordi, Eamon and G Steeler for their time, insights and kindness to the show, and please head over to True Metal Podcast's Instagram page to see the photo library for this episode.